All right, so just want to say a big thank you, first and foremost, to Colorectal Cancer Canada for approaching me and asking me to speak at this conference, especially on the topic of clinical trials. Um, and we'll kind of get to why in a little bit. But firstly, I kind of want to just go back a couple years and really just share my cancer journey and kind of how I got to where I am now. Going back a couple years to when I was 36. I was a healthy, active 36-year-old young adult. Life was great. Job was amazing. Wife's awesome. We both had a lot going on for us. We have a nice rural property just 40 minutes south of Ottawa. And generally speaking, life was good. I really had no complaints at that point. And then gradually, in about, I would say, June 2020, I slowly started having a little bit more abdominal discomfort, some cramps, some very minor pains here and there. But they totally come and go. There was nothing major. It was nothing even concerning. I really kind of just put a lot of it off to stress or whatnot. I've obviously worked in some pretty high stress jobs, so I really just attributed it to that. Um, and then I guess if you fast forward a couple months later, bringing us to September, I started to notice some very minor blood in my stool. And, I wasn't overly concerned, but obviously when you start seeing blood in places it's not supposed to be, it kind of raises some red flags. So, and to be perfectly honest, I really didn't think anything of cancer. Being a 36-year-old young adult, pretty healthy, I had really no reason to even go there, especially given um, I'm not overweight, I don't smoke, I have no other health conditions, there's no family history of cancer, especially colon cancer in my family as far back as we know. So really, uh, I kind of just let it go for a little bit, and then it just really wasn't going away. And I unfortunately played the Doctor Google game, right? And I started kind of googling some symptoms, and every time, no matter how I googled stuff or how I typed stuff, it would always come up. Very first thing is colon cancer. So I still really didn't believe it. I really wasn't even on that path, to be honest, but I always had that lingering a little bit in the back of my mind. So I brought this up to my wife, and we talked about it a few times, and then we decided that it was probably best for me to go to my GP. I do have an anxiety disorder and some PTSD from work. So obviously, once that worry kicks in, it's not very healthy for me. So I made an appointment with my GP, and she's awesome. She's absolutely phenomenal. We have a great relationship. I did have a very, I guess, stereotypical type of experience as a young adult with one of her students that I saw first, unfortunately. He basically checked. I got a physical exam. He looked over my history. We went over symptoms, and he basically attributed it to stress. He said it could be IBS, inflammation, and a whole slew of other things. So I told him I was concerned about, cancer kept coming up on Google searches and stuff. So he eventually went and he got my actual GP who came in and we chatted. And she knew right off the bat that she was going to offer me something more because she just knows me very well and wasn't about to send me away with no plan in place. So she had actually offered to send me for a colonoscopy. The problem here was it was right in the middle of the pandemic. Okay, so if we think about 2020, the world was essentially on shutdown at that point. So my main concern was, how long is this going to take? Am I even going to get a colonoscopy? And what do I do here, right? So she had advised me to wait for the referral. That would probably be a couple months. And if things got worse, just go straight to the ER. So I kind of left with that. I really didn't think anything cancer-wise, to be honest with you. I kind of just went on my way and just waited for that referral call. So uh, about a week later, I got that, which I was pretty surprised. It was pretty quick being during the pandemic. And it was for a couple months down the road. So it was still quite a bit of wait. And slowly I kept Googling and I kept kind of having inklings of what might be going on now, and stuff started to maybe hit home a little bit. So my anxiety started to raise quite a bit. And my wife urged me to go to the hospital. on a November. It was middle of November. So I'd gone to the ER. I had seen the ER physician. I spoke with him. He was a phenomenal young doctor. He thought it might have been diverticulitis or stress or whatnot, just like everybody else. But he essentially made one decision that completely saved my life. He wanted to send me for a CT scan just to confirm it was diverticulitis or inflammation or what have you before he prescribed me meds. So that move by him right there, and not just downplaying, oh, this is a 36-year-old healthy guy, it can't be cancer, which is unfortunately what does happen a lot, didn't happen. So that decision right there that that doctor decided to make that day was a complete lifesaver and game changer for me. So unfortunately, uh, that's when kind of everything really got real. So they did find a tumor on my sigmoid colon, and they saw some lymph nodes that were possibly enlarged and calcified around that area. So that was obviously a complete shock. I was by myself getting these results mid-COVID in the hospital, and it was absolutely terrifying. I was angry, mad, pissed, upset, confused, all at the same time, and I really didn't know what to do at that point. Fortunately, I had the nurses I had were amazing. They really supported me and they really helped uh, somewhat calm me down. Because let's face it, there was no calming me down completely at that point. And luckily, I won't name the hospital, but it was before I got to the Ottawa hospital. They actually kind of let my wife in to come see me when we talked to the general surgeon who was going to be performing an emergency biopsy that day. So that again was just kind of another reason and another kind of act of kindness from a medical person that was taking care of me that just kind of kickstarted a whole bunch of just amazingness from the medical staff I'd come across. So that biopsy obviously confirmed that there was a tumor there that looked like cancer. The surgeon was quite sure, but we had to wait for pathology. So once that came back, it was about a week later. And of course, as anybody that's been through this can imagine, that was the most grueling week of my life. My wife and I just, we can only imagine waiting on those results. And that Friday, so this was on a Monday, and then that Friday, we got the call with the results, and it was confirmed adenocarcinoma in the colon. And there were definitely confirmed lymph nodes that were reactive. They didn't know at what points what it was exactly, but they knew there were some that were enlarged. So my file immediately got sent to the Ottawa Hospital, and I met an amazing staff there. My oncologist, Dr. Yonker, all the medical oncologists there, and we went over some options. And one of the first things that he said is, there are a couple trials that I'm doing, and how do you feel about that? So in my mind, I was pretty terrified at that point because I thought that clinical trials were your last ditch effort and there was nothing else out there to help you. So that shook me pretty good. However, my doctor, as well as the clinical trial coordinators, they sat with me probably for about half an hour, 45 minutes, explaining everything, the options, whether it was just standard of care, watch and wait, or going into a randomized trial. So they basically comforted me. They took all the time in the world, and they really actually made me want to do it, right? So I still had a decision to make with my wife, whether we're going to do it or not. But at that point, I definitely felt supported, and I was kind of ready to go for it and put my trust in that team, because they did really go right from day one. They went above and beyond and really made sure I understand exactly what that trial was for, how it could benefit me, how it could benefit the cancer land in general down the road. And, after a couple of days of thinking, I almost didn't do it. And I decided to do it. And deciding to do that was probably one of the best decisions that I have made throughout my cancer journey. So, as I kind of spoke about before, I had surgery first. I had a major abdominal surgery, which was curative intent, and it was successful. My surgeons was Dr. Laura Williams. One of the CRC surgeons at the Ottawa Hospital was a godsend. She was absolutely incredible, as well as all the nurses on that floor when I spent a couple days there before getting sent home. But you know, pathology came back and lymph nodes were involved. So as I was saying before, my oncologist, Dr. Yonker, presented me with a few options, and that was watch and wait, standard of care, which was FOLFOX or CAPOX, and then it was a trial that he was running, and he explained it to me as they were trying to determine if a new combination of some of the kind of standard chemo drugs that they use in colorectal cancer and a little bit of a different combination had any more efficacy than just the standard of care FOLFOX regime. So as I was kind of mentioning, I was kind of stuck on this because, to be perfectly honest, I didn't really want all the extra appointments and questionnaires and attention, but it 100% was one of the best decisions of my life. And I just want to speak a little bit about kind of how I benefited from being in a trial, because there was a lot of really special things that happened over the course of my treatment. And I think people really, to be honest, really need to know that, because there was a lot of stuff that I learned about trials because I came into this with zero knowledge at all. And I think it's really important just to share with everybody that there are a lot of benefits with doing trials. And it doesn't only help you, it helps the cancer community, right? You never know what the trial is going to do or what actually is going to come out of it. So I think it's important, right, to try to help the folks that are trying to help you. So some of the things that really stood out to me that were, you know, just really, really important as part of my experience is the supportive care was second to none. Because of that trial, I got to see my oncologist every 2 weeks. I had to see him in person before every chemo appointment, so that was every 2 weeks for 6 months. And we became really close. Like, we were able to build a really good rapport because of that. He got to know me, I got to know him, and we kind of were on a level of we knew what makes each other tick and kind of how to approach each other and how to really collaborate and work together. And to me, that was pretty special because I know, talking to a lot of other folks that aren't in trials, sometimes you might see your oncologist maybe 2 or 3 times over the 6 months and everything kind of is going smooth. But I was in there, again, every 2 weeks. So that's amazing, you know, and as things kind of went on, I actually liked the attention because it took a lot of the worry away. Because as, you know, any patient listening could, you know, kind of attest to, is you get hyper vigilant, you get hypersensitive. Every little thing, like, oh, what's that? Is the cancer back? Is this supposed to be happening? And just the fact that I was able to get in front of my team every 2 weeks in person during a pandemic was pretty incredible. Like, that was invaluable to me. And also, huge shout out to my trial coordinators. So I actually participate in 2 trials. There's one that came after those 6 months were done, and it's a trial that is trying to look at if exercise post chemotherapy helps reduce the rates of recurrence and minimize neuropathy and all types of different effects. And that's with my doctor, Derek Yonker, as well. And so I got 2 trial coordinators that I literally have a direct line to. So if I have any questions, I like send off an email, send a text message, and it's almost like same day answers, right? And we all know that in the medical world right now, just with how short staffed everybody is and how stressed everyone is trying to keep things afloat, that's pretty awesome. I don't know many people that could say that. So that was definitely huge benefits. And all these people, they cared so much. And like, it wasn't just a show, right? These folks, every time I walked in there and saw them, they asked about my wife. They asked about my daughter now. And like, they remember, like, they know details. They asked me how my running's going and how my neuropathy is affecting that. And just so much. It's just so genuine. And it's hard not to be happy being in that position, right? When you're in kind of one of the worst positions somebody could be in, facing a cancer diagnosis. So one of the really neat things, actually, too, that I think was really unique to being in the trial is I live about an hour away from Ottawa, and I had the option to do treatment at a satellite center closer to me but that was not an option if I chose the trial because I had to do it at the general campus where they do all their research. So because of that, uh, the nurses, the coordinators, my doctor, everybody, they bent over backwards. Like they did everything possible to make this as smooth and as easy of an experience for me as possible. And they said that from day one. My oncologist full out told me that he wants this trial and this experience to have the least amount of an impact um, on my life and my family's life. So they would make sure all my appointments were in the same day, so I didn't have to drive into the city 3 times a week. They would write me recs so I could do blood work out here, and I had the choice of doing my CT scans out 10 minutes away from me as opposed to driving into Ottawa. So they really went above and beyond to really make sure that I was taken care of, and they made me important. They made me priority. Like they were basically like, hey, like you're giving us this time, you're helping us with our trial, and in return, like we're going to make sure that you get the best care and we take care of you and it impacts your life the least possible. And I mean, I really couldn't ask for anything better than that, right? So I think the one thing that I really learned about trials that I think a lot of people have a misconception too, which was really important to me at the beginning, was trials are definitely not a last ditch line of treatment or a last chance. Um, I, uh, I always thought that's what it was, but I was obviously educated, and now I know that that's not the case. Like there's tons and tons of trials and studies that happen for all different types of reasons, right? And that's the type of thing that allows um, research and the way doctors do things and the way the system operates to improve or change. And to me, it was a really unique opportunity to be able to give back and actually thank the people that were helping me and hopefully have the opportunity to, really help the cancer community, right? And just try to do my part in like a really, really big world. So I would recommend anybody if they have an opportunity to do trials. If you don't, ask your doctors, ask your oncologists, ask research, and try to see if there's anything that you could be a part of, because there are so many benefits, not just for you, but for your doctors, other cancer patients, and people that are going to come after you, right? So I really think it's something that, as patients going through this, is really important as well. So just as much as we need the doctors, they need us too. And they really do show you they care. You get some pretty amazing care that is above and beyond what your typical patient would get. So although it's kind of a scary thing, and I was scared, I questioned it, I went back and forth with my wife for about 2 days before we decided, and I almost didn't do it, as I mentioned earlier. So if I didn't do it, I mean, I have no doubt that I would still kind of be where I am today in regards to NED and my cancer journey, but it definitely would not have been the same. And I probably would have had a lot more stress, and it would not have been as of a, I hate to say pleasant, but there were aspects of it that were actually pleasant because, your team becomes almost like a family. And going through it during COVID, again, they stepped up huge, and they just the most caring, compassionate, loving folks there at the Ottawa Hospital Cancer Center that I could have ever asked for. And to be honest, I don't wish anybody ever has to be in the position that I was in. But if you do, just like I kind of found out, please know that trials are not scary. They are not last ditch efforts. They really do help advance the care that we get. And there are tons and tons of perks to them. So please take advantage, do your research, and if you have the chance to access them, I, uh, I, I can only highly, highly recommend that you take your doctors up on that. So I just kind of want to thank everybody for checking me out, for listening. And again, find those trials. They're completely worth it. And I promise you will not regret it. So thanks for checking in with me. And I'd like to thank Colorectal Cancer Canada again, just for giving me the opportunity to speak to all you guys.